Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sweaty Casuals, brought to you by the Snowflake Sanctuary Discord server. This is a podcast where we usually talk about the A to Z of the games we love to play, from the state of rank systems to our thoughts on the newest sensations and everything in between. My name is Nox, and along with my co-host Zach, we will be your guide as we traverse Elo Hell. A small reminder, we do swear, so viewer discretion is advised. Today we are joined by Spazzed Oreo, usually going by Oreo, and Drazzle Casson, who we usually call Draz. Oreo will be joining me in representing Gen Z, and Draz will be joining Zach on the other side representing the millennials as we debate the trials and tribulations of growing up as gamers in two different eras and which generation grew up more cultured. So to start the day, we are going to have a quick question, icebreaker question, which is, what was your first game? This could be PC or console. Zach, kick us off.
Pretty sure it would be Heroes of Might and Magic, the original.
I am not familiar. Please tell me more.
It's a turn-based RPG game. It's Baldur's Gate, but real light. And instead of playing a character, you play like an army. You play as an army and maneuver them around. It's really old school. I'll bring up some pictures or something at some point and show you guys, because it's very different than what we play even nowadays. And the third one came a few years later, and that one was actually 3D, which was real exciting.
Oh. What about you, Draz?
So my instinctual first answer was going to be Pokemon Red, but as Zach was talking, I had a core memory come back out of the archives, and I've realized that it was actually a CD-ROM that came in a Cheerios box, and it was a demo of the original Lion King PC game.
Ooh.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yep, and I suppose
was a
that
Lion
technically
King?
that would be my my
Oh,
first
yeah, there was.
video game.
Every movie used to have a tie-in game,
Yeah.
That's true.
and they were usually awful.
And you had to pay for the full version, and Mom was like, "No, so you can have these 3 mini games, and that's all you get." So, yep.
Sorry, Aspen wants a lot of attention right now.
She knows
She-
we're recording.
She climbed up from the depths to get my attention.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta give Aspen the pets.
But my first game that I remember playing was on PlayStation 2, and it was the 101 Dalmatians game. It was the weirdest game ever. I just know that I was obsessed with the movie, and my brother had a PS2, and it was the one game I had on it.
Awesome. I remember vividly having a Game Boy Advanced. It was pink, and I had a Bratz game that I loved so much. I don't have any memory of playing this game other than I know that I have it. One of the first games I remember playing was on the Nintendo Wii, which was a Disney princess game, which I don't remember the exact name of it.
I had that game.
We all had that game, and it's also made a kind of a comeback for nostalgia purpose. I'm pretty sure you can buy it on Steam right now. I keep
Really?
seeing TikToks about it, so I'm gonna have to look into that later. But
Huh.
But yeah,
Well,
so kind of going into tonight, we're kind of going to have a nice little discussion about the differences of us growing up in different generations in our gaming experience. So the first thing we kind of wanted to start off with was the question of, what was the state of gaming / PC gaming when you guys were growing up? And I kind of want to start with the millennials, because you guys are old. So you get to go first.
that old. Drazzle, you're gonna have to tell me, because my experience may be a little bit different. I started with 4th gen gaming, which is the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. I don't know if you got any of that.
The first one that we were given was actually a PS2. We jumped
Okay.
straight to that from handheld.
Oh wow, you went all the way to 6th gen. So for anybody's knowledge, 5th gen would have been Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64. 6th gen would have been PS2, GameCube, and the original Xbox. I got very lucky because I was able to do some of the SNES. I think some millennials would be able to maybe talk about the original Nintendo a bit more, along with some of the Atari systems. But just because we're on the mid to late side of the millennials, we didn't quite get any of that. I do have some memories though of SNES, particularly because some of the summer camps and like the preschool that I went to actually had a SNES for some reason.
Ooh, high-tech preschool.
Yeah, it was. I think it was just a random hand-me-down because it was a few years old at that point. I'm trying to think. That would have been close to 2000. It was a few years before 2000, but like the system was past its prime. Nintendo 64 was out.
Yeah. Retroactively, I bel I almost want to say that we had a PS3 at this point, but we were given an SNES, so I kind of got to experience that as a like after the curve. It was after everyone thought it was cool and then got rid of it. I
It's a
got it when
great
someone got
system.
rid of it.
It's a great system. But I did get to experience some of that growing up, which was nice.
Okay.
I got totally. I thought y'all started with Gen 7, but I got informed that before the show, you guys started with 6th gen, which would be PS2, GameCube, original Xbox, and the Sega Dreamcast. But then y'all got 7th gen and 8th gen, which is 360, PS3, Wii, and then 8th gen is Wii U, PS4, Nintendo Switch, and the Xbox One, which is terrifying.
What's
Oreo,
so
where did you
terrifying about
start?
that? Where did I start? Well, like we had a Wii growing up in our family, right? And played a whole bunch of, all the different Wii games. But when I was younger, I remember I got the Xbox 360 Connect, which was the weirdest thing ever. Like half the time the Connect thing didn't even work. But I remember I had like this one game that was like it was a jungle racing game on the Connect, and like you would have to jump or like crouch down. Like Temple Run on your phone? It was like that, but with your body. It was really, really weird. I have no clue what it's called. But Nox is gonna look it up. I was obsessed with this game, and it was on the Xbox 360 Connect.
From a very quick Google search, I don't know. But I could definitely look into it later because that does sound. I remember the Connect being in friends' basements, and you would go to the sleepover and you'd be like, "Oh, sick! I don't have one of those," and then they go, "It doesn't work anyway."
Yeah.
So
Pretty much, that's what it was. It'd be using that with friends or playing like Guitar Hero.
I think I played Just Dance with a Connect, which was kind of fun. I remember that working a little bit, but anything past Just Dance, which by the way, Just Dance was I
That was my
argue the game of
childhood.
the game of my generation.
Yeah.
But because I could get out of this chair right now and start doing the Rasputin dance from memory with no
everyone can.
music. Love that game. But no, like I said, I know I started with my most vivid memories were the Wii. I know I had a Game Boy Advanced, which I don't know from this list where that would land generation wise. But I would guess probably 6th gen. End of 6th gen, beginning of 7th gen. Remember having my
GameCube?
I did not have a GameCube.
I did.
My first console, if we want to talk about like console connected to a TV and not a handheld, it would be Wii.
I wanted to bring this up actually because I thought about it earlier. Oreo, you have a slightly different experience
Why?
because you have older siblings.
I do. I have an older brother that lived with us. He is only 5 years older than me, though. So, like, all of the consoles that he played on, so like the GameCube, the PS2, the PS1, like I've played on all of them, but I was really little, And like I'd say about half the time it was my brother and his friends giving me a controller that wasn't connected to the Xbox and saying, "Yeah, that one's you." And you go, "All right, I'm on it." So yeah, I've that's why I'd say like we like generation what was it, Gen 6
Mhm.
that I told you like I played like GameCube, like I remember playing that a whole lot, like playing Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros on the GameCube, right? But yeah, it was definitely when I was like 5 years old, but I only remembered it cuz my brother had one.
It's funny though because Drazzle, you're also the oldest.
Yes.
Yeah, so neither of us had the siblings to get experiences from. I got the weird summer camp stuff apparently in preschool. But my sisters grew up with a Nintendo 64, even though they're Gen Z, and it was way past its prime.
I was the oldest as well. I was the kid that knew how all the wires worked, and if a TV wasn't working, I was the one that would get called in. Um, I still remember having arguments with my sister because she's 4 years younger than me, and I'd be like, "Can you turn on the Wii so we can play?" She goes, "I don't know how to turn on the Wii," and I was like, "At your age, I was fixing TVs. Like, come on, like get with it," because I would get so frustrated that I was the computer. I was the electronic child. But I vividly remember playing on the Wii. I had Mario Kart. I wasn't allowed to have Super Smash Bros. That was too violent. So I didn't have Super Smash Bros. Until it came out on the Switch, and I bought it for myself because I deemed at 18 I could play violent games. Um, but I remember playing Super Mario Sluggers, which I've mentioned on this podcast before, is the best game of the Wii ever. I will take no criticism on that opinion.
Not Wii Sports?
No, Mario Super Sluggers was a gem. I
What
will
about
still
Super
play
Mario
it.
Bros?
Nope, Super Mario Sluggers. I have it back there. I will still play it to this day. That game is amazing, and there is no notes on it. It is great. Some of the mini games are a little bit wonky, but I don't blame it on Nintendo. That's the Wii's fault.
They made it.
But the game developers didn't design the console. Two different people. It's not their fault.
Hey,
Yeah, 'cause-
Drazzle,
Yes.
do you remember having to go to Channel 3?
Yes.
we had to go to Channel 3.
Did you
Did
guys?
you?
Okay.
I did.
I have no clue what that means.
So back in the day, if you wanted to go to an input for your TV, you had to go to Channel 3. There was no input button.
Oh.
I think on my very first TV that I ever hooked the Wii up to, I think I had to go to Channel 3.
Okay.
But it
That makes
wasn't
me
for
feel slightly
very it wasn't for very long because that actually unlocked a little memory of like finding the remote to like scroll through the channels until you were on 3. I remember that.
I don't
But yeah.
think we ever did that in our TVs.
Well,
Something had fancy TVs.
Yeah. You guys had an input button.
Well, I'm also the youngest one here, so
Not by that much.
But then again, I only did the Channel 3 for a very short amount of time, so it might have been in that window, you know?
yeah, I guess. I mean, I also could have like I said, my older brother always did it, so I'm sure if you asked him, he would probably know. I never set up anything. It would be like my brother handing me some, yeah, here you go.
Drazzle, I've got a couple things to reminisce about with you.
Sure.
To just
Shoot.
to get us off, and we can inform the youths here about our trials and tribulations of growing up gamers. Man, do you remember couch gaming?
I would love to say yes, but you know the way my mom's house is set up, we had those
Okay.
hard ass dining room table chairs, and that's
Yeah.
what we sat on to play video games.
You know
Because
what?
the
That's
grandparents didn't want us in the comfy living room. So
But you-
no, but tell me more. I would love to hear about it.
I would have loved this moment in my childhood.
just the fact that like if you wanted to go play games with friends, you went and sat on their couch. Like you went over to their house. You had to go be somewhere with them.
We did
When-
that too.
Yeah, but it was so different. Like nowadays, you hop online. You can just hop online. We didn't have that as an option.
Did you ever have LAN parties?
I never did LAN parties, but I didn't get into PC gaming until way into the internet age.
Mhm.
But like I did a lot of split screen gaming.
Bring split screen gaming back. Do you want to know what I want? I want Baldur's Gate split screen gaming.
Really?
For their
I would
PlayStation,
not want
Xbox.
Baldur's Gate split screen.
No, but it was something that they were supposed to bring when Halo MCC came to PC. They were supposed to bring back split screen for it. And they ended up dropping that feature. It was really disappointing.
Do you want to know a wild memory that I just had come back though? Speaking of Channel 3 and split screens. Do you remember that big TV? My mom had the big silver one that had the speakers on the side and it was as deep as it was long.
Okay, an old
And
CRT, yeah.
It must have been brand new at the time. We had it for like 2 decades. But the coolest thing about this TV was it could split inputs. So not split screen gaming. Like it wasn't Mario Kart. It was PlayStation on this half of the screen and Super Nintendo on this half of the screen. And you could play 2 separate consoles at the same time.
I
There was
think
a-
my TV now does that.
Yeah, there was a very small window where you could get those. You can still get some displays that do it. I know it's coming back for computer monitors right now. So you can connect up multiple computers.
This is so
mind
new.
is blown. You
This
haven't
is
seen
so
this
cool.
before?
No.
No, on my parents' TV, I can like hook up the Switch on one half and then have TV on the other half, so
God,
my
that would have
parents are happy
solved
and I'm happy.
so many arguments as a child. That would have solved
Exactly.
so many
We
arguments.
never
What's
had
the
to
fun in
fight because
that?
we could both play. We just had to argue over who got the sound because
Where
sound would
was-
only play from one of them.
Yep.
Ooh.
Where's the fun of losing the argument to my mother every time about what's more important, the news or Mario Kart? It was obviously Mario Kart, but I never won.
Ugh. I
All
mean,
right,
she's wrong, but
Here's another core memory for you, Drazzle. Do you remember game guides? Do you remember having to go buy the book to find out how to beat Pokemon?
I have a game guide of Pokemon Red that is so well used, we've had to use clear tape and put it back together. But I remember being so stubborn and not wanting to teach a Pokemon Flash because I didn't want to waste the move slot space. So I used that game guide and felt my way over along the walls through the cave between
Rock
the
Tunnel.
yeah, that one, the dark one. And felt my way through the entire like 4-level dungeon because I refused to teach a Pokemon Flash. And that's the kind of gamer I am.
Because we didn't have the internet really. It existed, it just didn't do all the same things it does now. We had to go buy a book to find out how to beat our games. So there's a copy of the Wind Waker guide somewhere that the cover is like fallen off that I used because I needed to know where all the darn things are in that game.
Yeah,
The game guides drive me nuts. That's insane. Y'all spent money on that?
I spent my mother's money on that.
In a lot of ways you had to, because if not, it was just like, what do you do? Like, so
Figure it out on your own.
none of you, I'm assuming, have played Wind Waker. Maybe
I have
Drowsy?
no clue what that is.
It's a Legend of Zelda game.
Oh, okay.
It was on
I
the
believe
GameCube.
you.
It was on the GameCube.
I have to take your word for it. I wasn't alive, so.
Neither was I.
Oh. One of the big
Low-hanging
things on
fruit.
that. One of the big things with that one though was it took place basically like an ocean. You had to go sail around all these different islands. And though it was a big map, I think it was like 8 across. I think there was like 64 little zones that you could go to with 64 little islands basically. And there were things on the map where it was like, yeah, you have to go in this one spot that's not even like close to the island. It's like in the middle of the ocean and find this one thing. And it was like, okay, how do you know how to go there? Like, you have to get that information somehow.
Or just explore.
Yeah.
there's a point where it's just like it's not even worth it. Like the amount, it already took a number of hours to get to the point where you're like actually at that point. So
That sounds like bad game design. Who was
Like,
making the game guides? Was it the companies that were making the games?
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure
Yes.
it was.
I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't technically a lot of them were made by like third parties, but there's a good YouTuber whose name is Papa C. He's been going back and doing a lot of the old Pokemon games, but he's been specifically playing it exactly how the guide tells him to,
Hmm.
and finding
So-
basically all the errors.
So is the game guide just literally directions on how to get through the game?
It's like recommended
sounds
strats
cheap.
and stuff.
Why,
It-
but like, why would you play the game if you just read how to play how to
Okay.
beat the game?
Have either of you gotten to a point where you're stuck and you go look up a YouTube video on how to do it?
I mean,
No, I'm not questioning the validity of it. The amount of times I already Googled a Baldur's Gate quest because I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing. I get it. I think it's funny you paid money for it. And
Hey,
I know
they
you
just
didn't have a
take-
choice, but I'm stuck on that.
They take the internet for granted, Zach. They take the internet for
Well,
granted.
we've had the
Absolutely
internet for our entire lives. Like,
That's my point.
Can I say something to scare the millennials in the chat?
Oh god,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
never had dial-up.
Mhm.
I remember dial-up.
I
remember
never
running
had
around
it.
with the phone cable.
Get off the computer. I want to use the phone.
I've
Oh, no,
only ever had cable in my life.
I've
Yeah.
had a very brief window where we had dial-up and we didn't have a separate internet connection, and I was actually using it. So usually I just get yelled at and be like, "How long were you on the internet?" And I was like, "I don't know, like 2 hours." And my dad just go, you can't leave the phone unplugged for that long."
Sure, you can.
At
why
10
not?
At 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Oh god.
Right. Everyone's in church. It's fine.
Everyone's in church.
I'm gonna
Oh,
lose it.
God.
Wow.
You know, some of these things I thought they were just funny little stories. We're not.
It was
No.
different. It was
They were
very different.
traumatizing.
That's why they're funny little stories now.
The other thing that's funny is like, so I think I've mentioned it on the show before, like I grew up with a Mac. And Drazzle, you can attest to this. People did not have Macs in the mid to late 90s.
Not unless you had like the candy colored one.
Well, yeah, but like, and that was the one that everybody had. But like, nobody actually had them at home.
No.
No, you had them at schools because Apple
Mhm.
probably.
I
sweet
remember
talks
the
from government.
candy colored Macs in the
Mhm.
school
Right.
computer lab. I
they're awful.
remember.
Never
Hey.
had that.
Hey, I got to
Ah.
play cool math games on them. I wasn't
Oh, I
complaining.
loved cool math games. That was great.
But the funny thing was, everything back in that point was every game was Windows. Every game was Windows.
Tell us what's changed, Zach.
And most stuff you can. You know, that one actually hasn't changed that much because most games are still Windows only. It's changing a little bit now.
If I
You know,
tried-
You can
like,
play League of
I tried
Legends
to
on the
play-
Mac.
Dude, I tried to play Goose Goose Duck on my MacBook at home. It sounded like it was gonna kill it. Like
It's a rocket ship.
no, it was, and the thing is, this thing has no vents. So like, and it was dying.
we could do a whole episode on the trials and tribulations of Apple's design philosophies. We're going to try not to go into that. I have way too many
But
thoughts.
like, literally, it's just there's you can't play games on anything other than Windows.
Minecraft
realistically.
runs fine. I used to play Minecraft at work all the time on my
Okay.
MacBook.
You got a point. However, modded Minecraft, absolutely not.
No, oh no, it was vanilla. The
Oh, I did
server did
mine.
work though. I could get on the server.
I did.
Well,
mod
I will
Minecraft
say
on my Mac.
Minecraft is the game that like got me into PC gaming. Like I got that shit on my like really old like Dell laptop that I shared with my brother when I was in like 5th grade or something. and it barely handled it. But that was like the first PC game besides Club Penguin, because everyone played Club Penguin.
Played what now?
Club Penguin.
Oh yeah,
I was gonna say, girly, if you say you don't know what that is, I think I would have to.
The early onset Alzheimer's set in for a second. I didn't hear words there.
Hey, Drazzle.
Yeah.
Neopets.
Mine are all starving somewhere, crying out for help.
Mine are too.
Asking for salvation.
Fuck Neopets. Webkins?
Had them too.
Webkins were great. I still have some of my Webkins stuffed animals. I re-downloaded Webkins on my PC the other day.
How about
it has changed so much.
What is it?
Flash games?
Yes.
Once the internet started to become a thing?
To an extent, yes. Flash. Wasn't
E-Bombs World?
Was Pop Tropica Flash?
Yeah.
I don't think Pop Tropica. That game was still running up until like last month.
AddictingGames.com before Nickelodeon bought them.
Yep.
Oh my god. You brought up a memory. Do you remember like when Disney Channel and Nickelodeon were trying to make games off of their TV shows?
If you don't remember playing it was like Hotel Dash with Zach and Cody.
I was just gonna fucking say that! Were you trying to get them like up the hotel or something and get whatever?
And you couldn't get caught by Mr. Mosby or Esteban? Oh yeah.
Yep.
I remember.
I don't remember that, but I remember a game. I think it was Lilo and Stitch, and you were trying to stack a sandwich on Stitch's.
That one too. Yes,
I remember that.
No, that one was lit.
I liked that one.
No, and I can't remember if it must have been Lilo and Stitch the show, because it wasn't either Lilo and Stitch that was trying to get it. It was whatever creature looked like Stitch, but his whole thing was eating sandwiches. I think he was yellow.
Oh yeah, it was a little fat one. Yeah.
And you would go back and forth, and you couldn't catch the rotten ingredients.
Yep.
You had to keep it.
That was either 624 or 625. I can't remember which.
Okay.
One of them.
We'd have to take the internet for granted and go look it up.
There was also a Guitar Hero style Hannah Montana game where you could use the not WASD, it would have been ASDF to like hit different guitar chords for all her different songs. I used to play that for hours because the more you played, the more songs you unlocked. But the internet browser never remembered that I had played that game before, so it always set me back to level 1 when I would play. So I would sit and play for hours to unlock all of the songs.
Did you have the Hannah Montana Wii game?
Yes. Of course I did.
That was like my favorite game. Like the amount of videos my parents have of me singing into this crappy Wii mic, the Hannah Montana songs, and like dancing like Christmas Day. Like as I got this game, and I would sing along to Miley Cyrus every single day for like the next 3 years.
I thought the Wii microphones had survived the move. I do not think they did, unfortunately. Otherwise, I tried to pull mine out.
That's unfortunate.
I know.
Going back a step for a second. Going back to guides. Your not remembering progress reminded me of a different book that we got. Do you remember Codes, Drazzle? Particularly on the Game Boy?
Vaguely. My brother was always into it, but I was like, no, that's cheating. And I refused to touch it. So I understand what they are, but I never did anything with them.
So back especially like Super Nintendo 64, and like Game Boy era, that kind of realm, you couldn't save a lot of times. There wasn't a physical hardware way to save things. So what you'd actually
SNES game.
So what you'd do is at the end of levels it would give you a code, but then you could go buy a book that had all the codes in it.
Because they didn't change. They weren't randomly generated.
Sometimes it was cheating. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was just, man, I want to get back to that level, but I don't remember the code and I didn't write it down. But you'd go buy a book, and usually they were actually pretty reasonable valued. You'd get like one book, and it would have like, yeah, here's every game that came out in the last 2 years, and just all the codes for it. I remember Star Wars Rogue Squadron. It's one of my favorites on Nintendo 64. And if you had the codes for that, you could go unlock some of the bonus ships. So actually, when I got Rogue Squadron 3, I remember there was one particular code that I liked to use because you could use the Naboo Starfighter, which all those games took place within like the original trilogy. So being able to get a ship that was from the sequel or the prequel trilogy in a movie that had come out like 2 years before was super exciting.
Yeah, I never got books. I remember there were Minecraft books, but I never got them.
So I have a question for Oreo because I unknowingly lied about the first console I ever played on.
Okay.
Did you ever have a VTech V-Smile?
You're gonna have to show me a picture of it.
This sounds like a PC thing.
It
Okay,
is
hold on.
surely not. I'm
remember
sending
that.
it to you, Oreo, real quick. I'm sorry. I know this is a podcast, but this is important.
Okay, Zach can edit it after.
Ouch.
You should edit this one in after. I'm gonna be so real.
Oh my god, yes, I had the pink one.
So for those who don't know, the VTech V-Smile was a child gaming console that looked, I would imagine, kind of rivaling a GameCube. It had cartridges that you'd put in, but it was all games targeted for toddlers and young children that were like learning games, but they were not, I do not remember them that way. I remember getting so pissed off by the Aladdin game that I wanted to put it through the window. There was a Lion King game, there was an Aladdin game. I would sit there for
game.
hours
Cinderella.
on this thing. It was the best thing known to man. Amazon's still selling them. I'm 2 clicks away from buying one.
eBay has them for $45. No, I remember
Did you Google it, Zach?
having this.
I'm looking at it.
I Googled it.
I had the orange one.
Okay. No, I was thinking of something different.
Things I do to hear the startup sound for this console again. Oh my god, I think I could die happy. That's crazy.
When I was younger, I had the pink one. I was obsessed with like princesses when I was younger. I had this little princess TV in my room. It was like that wide and that
I had it too.
it was pink and it had like a princess crown on the top, and then plug this pink fucking console into the only inputs on the side of that little TV available. And my mom would sit me in my room and go, "Okay, play your game."
Okay, sorry I derailed the conversation about a VTech gaming console nobody knows about except for Oreo and I, apparently.
I mean, that was the goal with this conversation was we grew up very
That
differently.
thing was lit. That thing was lit.
Yeah.
So I know Zach was reminiscing with Draz about some things that they remember from their time playing console games and growing up with games. And I wanted to reminisce about a few things with Oreo. The first being, Oreo, did you have a Nintendo DS?
I did. I had it in a pink. I had a DS and a Game Boy that I scratched out the word boy and changed it to girl.
Amazing.
And had Hello Kitty stickers on it. I don't remember what I played on it. I just remember having it.
Do you remember ever playing any games on your DS and trying to use the network to play online with friends through the network you were on?
It like barely worked. It didn't
Oh,
work.
yes. I have vivid memories of being at swim meets as a child and finding random swimmers from other teams that also had a DS with the same games and us trying to make the network connection work so that we could play Mario Kart together.
I would do that at gymnastics. We go to a meet and do exactly that. Try to play whatever DS Mario Kart we could.
I have this vivid memory of standing on the pool deck at my home pool, and this random dude that I had met earlier this morning, I was like, "You're doing something wrong. It's not connecting," and us just arguing about it at a swim meet.
Okay. Can I also know about the DS? Zach is currently pulling his out. I don't know where mine
No,
is.
I'm gonna unlock a core memory.
Oh, okay. But do you remember? I don't remember what the like app on it was, but it
PictoChat?
was yeah, and you would like scribble in the entire screen to be black so that you could like erase
Erase
words out
it
of
and
it.
say hi and then send
Yeah,
it
and
to your
say hi
friends.
and send yeah. That shit was great.
Hey, Drazzle,
Yes.
for link cables.
I remember link cables, and I remember the little worm lights that you would plug into the little port on the side. Because backlights were not a thing. So
Nope.
you had to have a little external light that was like a little lamp for your Game Boy that you would plug into the side of it so you could see it on road trips.
Really?
Or at night.
Yeah,
Just
or
it
that, I
didn't have a
guess. Yeah.
backlight. It displayed it like if I turned this on right now and showed it to you, you wouldn't be able to see it at all.
Hmm.
No. This was how you did for portable consoles. This is how you actually like network gamed. Was you plug this in. This goes into like the side of the Game Boy. Where is it?
Before things were wireless.
Before things were wireless. Yeah, it goes in right there. There's a little port. And then you
Interesting.
plug in the other side to the other Game Boy. And there's a little hub here. So you can connect another one if you want to.
Why were things such more fun colors in the 90s? I want to bring them back.
Marketing?
That's true.
That is true. That is very
I
true.
want everything to be in transparent candy colors again.
You know, you
I
say
would buy
that,
it.
I
and
mean, the Switch. I got pretty colorful Joy-Cons for my Switch.
the one thing I don't miss is material science has come a long way. This hand feels gross after touching that.
Yeah,
cable.
is it a little sticky?
It's a little sticky.
Yeah.
Gross.
Gross.
The cable's got to be 25 years old, 20 years old minimum. So,
So as old as me, cool.
fun fact, I actually found out while I was doing research for this, Super Nintendos were made up through like 2001.
You know what will
I was
make you
alive.
sound
That's
old?
crazy.
I wasn't.
That just
I
hurts.
was born a year after.
God.
The amount of things you guys can talk about, and I go, wasn't even born yet.
Youth.
Another thing that I think was kind of up and coming, I wouldn't say it's Gen Z who made these, but Gen Z was kind of the one who watched them. I think the general YouTube Let's Play kind of environment was forthcoming kind of in the late 2000s. I try to think of like Markiplier, and I know those are not the early ones, but Jacksepticeye are ones that I watched.
It's funny because I think you guys got to profit more off of them, but we definitely got some of it.
I mean,
think-
who are some of the early ones you remember?
Drazzle, what's the first one you remember? Because mine's gonna be weird. Mine's pre-YouTube. Let's put it that way.
MySpace.
Probably Yogg's Cast. I came into that real late.
Okay. I was very early on the train for Red versus Blue.
Okay.
For anybody who knows what that is.
No, but you mentioned this to me the other day. You and Caramel were like, "Oh my god, she would love this character. Hate him at first, right?"
Yeah, we were. Tex is a badass. So for the youngins and for anybody else who's unaware, Red versus Blue was basically kind of the first machinima, which is basically describing video games where people are just playing the game but then adding voices and trying to create their own story to it. So that one was the first one, or one of the first ones, and it was all taking place in Halo, and it took place on Blood Gulch on that map, and you just have the red team who is really mad at the blue team, and they both have to defend this base and try and take over this canyon, but neither of them know why. I think the
Or
first
it's
line was-
Overwatch.
Kind of. But I think the first line in the show is, "I wonder why we're here." But that was, gosh, I want to say that was like 2004-ish, 2003, somewhere around there. YouTube doesn't actually exist yet. But that community really started to foster a lot of gaming content. And then they ended up becoming Rooster Teeth, which I'm sure some of y'all have at least heard of. That actually,
I
the
only
name of
know
the
of
company,
Rooster Teeth because of you.
okay,
So
the name of the company actually comes from RVB. They use the term cockbite to insult people. And they
that's
were like,
funny.
oh,
I'm gonna use that one.
yeah, well, they were like, oh, apparently that's not a friendly term to name our company, so.
No, I mean, like I said earlier, I was obsessed with like Minecraft when I was getting into that. So I would just watch a bunch of like Minecraft YouTubers, like Let's Plays and stuff, and like uh them going on different Minecraft servers and stuff. But I never like when I was watching YouTube stuff, it was never for like cuz like I didn't really play console that much and I didn't play like the generic like I never played Halo. I barely played CS:GO. I like all those like adventure like common games. Never played Zelda, right? Like I just never played those. I was always like into the online gaming, playing with friends and stuff. I don't really love playing games by myself. I like the social aspect that comes with them.
Hey, Drazzle,
Mhm.
when did you start playing Halo?
Um, when I bought a secondhand 360 from some guy on Facebook, question mark, question mark, question mark.
Can I ask, did anyone have like the themed 360s?
Mm.
I never had a 360. I got very lucky. I had a friend who, when I was growing up, I remember I met him on the third day of first grade. Um, really specific.
Way back when.
Yeah, way back when. But when I went over to his house, Drazzle, you can attest to this. People owning more than one console was kind of unusual. I shouldn't say that. More than two consoles, because you'd usually have like an at-home one, and then you'd have like a portable.
Yeah.
So you'd have like your console that plugged into a TV, and then you'd have a console that you could like walk around with, which was usually a Game Boy.
Really? That's it?
That's it.
Well, that's all that was out at the time.
I mean, it was also just like, if you really wanted to play something else, go to a friend's house. You have to do that anyway if you really want to play with them.
Maybe I was just spoiled. We always had like 3, 4, maybe 5 different consoles, including
Also,
handhelds.
having siblings also changes it, I think, a little bit. So I had a Nintendo system basically the entire time I was growing up. But I remember going to this friend's house and he had, at the time he had a Nintendo 64. And then soon thereafter he had a Dreamcast. Or sorry, he had the 64 and the Dreamcast. And then soon thereafter he had the GameCube, the original Xbox, and a PlayStation 2. So he had 5 consoles. And it was just every time it was like, but I remember being been about 7 or 8 when Halo came out and playing that, the original Halo, and him and I just struggling our way through that because it was not designed. We shouldn't have been playing it. We were definitely too young. But at the same time, it was a really fun experience for us to figure that out. And I remember he came back one day and it was like past its prime. Like Halo 2 had definitely come out, but he was like, "Hey dude, like somebody figured out a way you can totally like glitch the map in Halo 1 and go do this really stupid thing." And it like broke the level. It didn't work at all. Then I remember at Halo 2 there was a really crazy glitch. I forget how he found out about it. This must have been at the Rooster Teeth point. He must have probably heard it on one of their forums because this was before YouTube. Where it was like, oh, if you steal this Banshee, which you have to do in this like obnoxious way where you have to convince the AI pilot to like fly into a tunnel. and then you get on it, and then you have to go past a checkpoint before it even works. But then you can go get the scarab gun at the top of this building, and then there's a soccer ball you can hit around too. Everything was word of mouth.
I
There were
played
no
Halo Infinite once for like an hour.
For like an hour.
Halo used to be different.
Oh, I know, because my boyfriend loves Halo. No one was more excited for the awful TV show like he was.
Ooh.
And I never, once again, I couldn't play Super Smash Bros. So I did not have anything. I also did not have a PlayStation until I was 16, and I bought my first PlayStation 4. So I was Nintendo my entire childhood until I was 16. And then I bought Overwatch, which changed my life forever. And I bought The Last of Us, which arguably also changed my life forever. I definitely was still scared my parents would take away my PlayStation at 16 because I was playing violent games. So I never played The Last of Us when I was at home, when my mom was home. Sorry, Mom. Love you. I was killing zombies in your basement.
I do remember actually one Christmas my parents got me Medal of Honor, and I was a bit of a history nut at that point, so I really wanted to play it, but I was told specifically you have to wait till your siblings go to bed. So I could play from about 9 to 9:30, and that was the only time I could play the game. And it was really awful because my parents were also very strict, no more than 30 minutes of video games per day. So
30 minutes?
30 minutes. And apparently some of those levels took longer than 30 minutes.
I still remember doctors telling us no more than an hour of screen time a day. And I looked at them and I went, how am I supposed to watch?
Uh-oh.
Oh, there she
goes.
goes.
For an hour. Fuck. Anyway, I'll restart. They said only an hour of screen time. And I said, what if I want to watch the whole 4-hour baseball game? I was a big Brewers fan at the time. And now I look at my phone screen time. I'm on that bitch like 3.5 hours a day.
That's actually a really good point to bring up because hey Drazzle, how old were you when you got your first cell phone?
14, 15.
What kind of phone
I
was
started driving. It was a little I lie, it wasn't even a flip phone, it was a brick. It was one of the old Nokias.
Oh, did you have a Nokia? Oh, I'm a little jealous.
I had a Nokia with Snake on it. That was the only game that came on it. If you pulled the faceplate off of it, the little earpiece looked like a smiley face, and I enjoyed that a lot. There's no point to that. I'm just sharing. A little Easter egg.
I had a flip phone that I shared with my sister in middle school. Technically,
you shared it.
Shared it. We shared it in the fact that if I needed to make a phone call, I went to my sister and said, "Hey, I want to make a call." She was the one who actually had it and tried to use it, and usually got in trouble for using it. Man, that was back when text cost money.
Remember that.
What was your first phone, Knox? How old were you?
I got a phone earlier than most because I was traveling a lot for sports camps. So there was a lot of I got a phone early because my parents would send me away for 2 days, or they'd send me away for 10 hours. And in case I needed something, they wanted me to have a cell phone on me. So I was probably 8. I think when I got my first phone was a flip phone. It was pink. And then I slowly
Wait, was it the Motorola?
It might have been. Phone? Yeah.
My mom had that right. One.
The Razr.
Yeah, I'd have to do some Googling, but it was pink and it flipped, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I never used it because none of my friends had cell phones at the time. And then I upgraded. I remember at one point I had a blue phone where it was a touch screen, but it would slide up for the keyboard.
That was my first phone.
That was pretty lit. I don't know. I don't know what they were called. I was a child.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was called either.
And then I had another one that was it was a square and it would slide up for the keyboard. That was probably my favorite. That one still exists as a play toy in my grandma's house for my younger cousins. That one still exists somewhere. But I was I was in 7th grade when I got my first iPhone. And it was the iPhone 6S. It was the first one that had the fingerprint scanner.
So, when I was in 4th grade was when I got my first phone. And it was that blue slide up one with the keyboard. And then the end of 5th grade, I got my first iPhone. And it was the iPhone 4S. And it was like the year it came out.
You
I
know,
was a
Zach,
spoiled child.
I think we thought the video games were going to be the one that showed the real divide. I think we just realized that it's cell phones.
It's the phone.
I think we're barking up the wrong tree with this podcast.
What was you've never had an iPhone?
I had one. I had a singular
one?
iPhone before I
Oh, did
switched
you?
to Android.
Which one
Which
was
was a 4S.
Hey!
After I
I was
had
in 5th
a
grade.
job, I was not in high school anymore.
I was
Like,
still in high
here's
school.
iPhone.
I was still in high school, but I had a 3G.
I think I just hurt Drazzle's soul with that.
Wait,
with
Zach,
that
what did you-
statement.
What did you make a face at to what I said? What was the face for my 6S?
Because my first iPhone was the 3G, not the 3GS. The
The
3G.
3G. I remember when that came out.
Zach,
The
let me tie this back.
3GS
to-
was out. I just was told we're not spending that much money on you.
Let me tie you back to the comment I made earlier in the podcast that I was the electronic child. Because I understood what was going on and had learned enough about these phones, I was able to make a decent enough case to my parents that it was worth getting the 6S for the fingerprint scanner for Christmas that year.
See, I was the techie child too. I was the one where, so I was taking driver's ed when I got it. I remember that very vividly. I remember my mother came to pick me up because we had to take it in middle of nowhere for summer school. And then when she gave it to me, it was still in the box. I literally turned it on. It had the SIM installed and nothing else. I was already on it, downloading, getting everything that I needed, putting phone numbers in. I had everything going in about 10 minutes, including
Okay.
getting Tap Tap Revenge.
Since we're talking about smartphones, what was like your guys' go-to like game on the iPhone when you got it?
Tap Tap.
Temple
Oh
Run?
god, Temple
What about
Run. Yeah.
Doodle Jump?
I never got into Doodle Jump.
Oh, I loved
Temple
that
Run.
game.
I loved Flappy Birds.
Mm.
Flappy Bird, I remember playing that and the whole deal about that.
I think I graduated college when that came out.
I was in middle school. It was great.
I
remember when it got removed.
Okay, I misspoke, but yes, Flappy Bird is one.
Oh,
Okay.
I was gonna say Flappy Bird. Remember when it got like removed because people were being like way too ridiculous about this game and like hurting themselves over it? I remember it was like so cool to have it after it got removed off the Apple Store.
Yeah, I had it for a long time.
So
I was mistaken. I was in college when it came out.
I remember being in 8th grade. I remember a classroom I was sitting in when someone looked at me when I said, "Why did they take it off?" And they went, "Someone themselves."
I remember that too. It was such a
I got dark quick.
Well, sorry. Content warning. Vivid core memory of mine of walking into my 8th grade history class and someone looking at me and saying that. The game I meant to bring up was Angry Birds. That's the one that I was thinking about earlier.
Mhm.
Angry Birds, and then what was the other one I was thinking of? I lost it.
There was one called like
Candy Crush.
It was Jetpack.
I still
Joyride?
play Candy Crush to this day.
Oh, Angry Birds.
yeah,
She
that's what
just said
she
that.
just said.
I'm going insane.
Did you just miss the last 30 seconds?
I guess
He was
so.
he was so stuck in what
like
he
sitting
wanted to
there
say.
in
He
his
wasn't
own brain
listening.
trying to think of what it's called while here explaining what the fucking game is.
I will say, as soon as he said it, I went, Oh no, am I going crazy? Did I just not say that? It was a nice little check-in on my own sanity. Sorry, Zach.
Give me a second. Grandpa needs to go
Sorry.
take his meds. As we start to wrap up, let's just touch on always online gaming, because Drazzle, do you remember having to sign into Xbox Live? Like you had to sit there
No.
and wait for it? Oh. You missed it, I think, because this was like original Xbox era more.
Yeah,
And like
because I only got
actually
a
no, it came with a
360
360, but like original, like right when it came out, it was like no, like you have to sign in. You had to press a button to actually sign in. You still have to do it on some systems. I think Switch technically you kind of have to.
No, I didn't get a 360 till I had my second Eclipse, my third car, second Eclipse. So I was 19 when I got a 360.
You had 3 cars by the time you were 19? What the
Okay, I was
fuck did
hoping
you
no
do
one
to
was
these
gonna catch
cars?
that.
I wasn't
Uh,
gonna ask.
I am.
This is a podcast about video games, not about people
Sorry,
driving.
my bad.
I mean, I can tell you the story if you want, but I can also tell you later.
Tell me
Another
later.
time.
Yeah. But yeah, so 360, I didn't get it till I was 19, give or take. So I probably missed that.
Okay, I remember it was like I have a core memory for me. You bought it and you got a disc to install Xbox Live on your system's 360.
God.
Really?
Yeah. And I remember this same friend who had multiple systems, his dad got it, and one of the first questions it asks you is, what's your username gonna be?
The hardest question to every child, can I say?
He sat there with me and my friend for like an hour just trying to figure out something that would work, and half of them that we came up with were just taken. And of course, the way that it used to do it was like if you put in a name and it was already taken, the next thing it would recommend was it would just stick 4 numbers in the end.
I mean, things still do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was funny because it was the only reaction that it had. It was just to immediately be like, here's 4 random numbers.
I really remember that.
It'd be like the year you were born, too.
Yeah, which is awful for security, but that's a separate conversation.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, wasn't it?
We didn't know. I mean, the world was different at that point. I mean, hell, I
We were
remember
all innocent.
Drazzle, do you remember LimeWire?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't
And
have it. I heard
I didn't
of
have
it.
it either. You
I
know, I
heard
was
stories.
I
but
just
I was
stripped everything off YouTube.
But at least with that, there's an argument of like, well, it's available for public. Like I can go on YouTube and get it. So LimeWire was just straight up like, hey, we're sharing files.
Robbery.
And then people were the record companies in particular were like, hey, that's stealing.
I mean, they were right.
Suck it.
They were right.
Get wrecked.
And that's why
Get wrecked.
and it's why DMCA exists now, and that's a whole other conversation that we're not
Oh,
going to get
yes.
into. But that's basically why that law exists, is because of things like LimeWire. I mean, hell, we could even just touch on the fact that, like, Drazzle, do you remember when you got your Facebook?
In high school.
I was high school too.
Mm-hmm.
I got it. It was within a year of it coming out.
Was Facebook like a really big deal for y'all?
Oh, yeah.
mean, we
Because
were there
I
when it
can
was
tell you,
created.
I didn't get a Facebook until I started college, and the sorority was like, "Hey, you need a Facebook for the chapter."
Yeah.
And I went, "I need to make one of those." Because
Yeah.
I grew up on Instagram.
I would say a better question for Gen Z is, when did you make your Instagram? I was in 7th grade.
Instagram was
I-
out there.
I think I was in like 5th grade on my
Exactly.
iPod Touch.
When did
Which-
you make your MySpace?
I didn't have a MySpace. I avoided
Aw.
that one. Just barely. Just barely.
I had one of them.
Oreo, it's funny because you're about 2 years behind me and everything, which makes sense. It's crazy how like on top, like we were at very similar experiences because you're 21, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're 2 years apart. Yeah.
Yeah, every memory you have is middle school, and every memory I'm like, I was almost done with elementary school. Like the child I am. And then these two are like, I was graduating college.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just moved out from under my rock,
Yeah.
entered society,
Which I haven't even
made a
done yet.
Facebook.
So
Maybe just to wrap it up, are you happy with the generation you grew up with? Is there something that you would change?
No. Well, maybe not having a backlight. That kind of sucks.
Yeah, and our eyes are gonna suffer for it for the next. Yeah.
wow, imagine having bad vision.
That's crazy. I don't think I would
Crazy, that's
change
crazy,
it.
man.
Please, not again. I don't think I'd change a thing. I think that in terms of like how games kind of progressed and where graphics came and the interactivity and the different consoles, I think growing up as a Wii kid was one of my favorite parts of my childhood was my Wii. And I don't think I would change anything about how like I would play on every Sunday. Me and my dad and my sister would go play Mario Kart with the Wii, and we all had the wheels that you put the remotes into, and it was super fun in our basement. I don't think I would change anything about it. I would think I wish I would have gotten into certain things sooner, but that wasn't on me, or that wasn't on the generation. That was more of a personal thing. But I don't think I would change where I'm at right now and how I kind of grew up with it.
Yeah,
No.
I think starting with the Wii was like a really good like starting system for like our generation because it was so unbelievably popular. Like everyone had a Wii, whether you liked games or not. Like even my friends now that I talk to who are like, wow, you play games? I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, I haven't played the Wii in years. And I'm like, I've evolved. Me with my whole entire PC setup in my apartment, right? But it was a really good gateway to like you knowing that online gaming existed, but like you weren't quite thrown to the wolves yet. Because I feel like going into online gaming in our generation was a lot scarier because it was a lot older people on it. At least from my experience, I was always playing with older people, and then it would be scary. And then there's the whole like gamer girl thing, which is also scary. But
That's a separate conversation.
yeah, that's a separate thing.
It's a
I
separate-
could talk about that for hours.
Honestly, that might be a great topic for one day, possibly soon.
Yeah.
I'd also agree. I wouldn't change. I think Draslin, you can chime up if you have any comments on this. I think it's pretty nice to come up as a.
It's
I'm so
$20.
sorry. I'm so sorry. I sent Oreo the link to Disney Princess Enchanted Adventure on Steam.
Good old games. If anybody has any interest in older games, older titles, especially any millennials who might be watching, you can get a lot of great stuff there. And it's gotten a lot of the copyright's been removed, so you can do things that you might have not been able to do otherwise. For anybody who remembers Heroes of Might and Magic that I mentioned earlier, it's available on Steam. Don't buy it there. Buy it on Good Old Games. It actually works off Good Old Games.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your sentimental moment. Please continue.
No, just as growing up as a millennial, like we got a kind of weird education in gaming. Even just in life, tech was evolving incredibly rapidly, and you look at what it was in the early 90s and what it was by the time we hit 2000, and it was very different. It's nice to be able to converse on both sides of that, having to deal with dial-up and connecting a phone. It's an awful experience. Don't recommend it to anybody, but it's nice to know what it's actually like.
I don't need to know. Thank you.
I'm good not knowing, yeah.
Thank you, but I'm okay.
okay,
I
I'll
liked
be fun.
having my own time and not worrying about others.
Get to disconnect the landline. Nobody can call you.
I do
Hey,
wish that
honestly,
I could
I wish
disconnect
that was
my
a thing
landline
now.
so that no one could call me.
Now it's do not disturb, and even then calls go through.
Correct. Well, to kind of wrap up our podcast as we do every week, we do a little segment called The Real World because while we love being online with our friends and gaming, we do have lives that we enjoy talking about outside of this. So during this, we will share anything from recommendations of books to music to anything that we've been up to, just to give you a little bit more of a taste of our personality outside of our gaming personas. So, Oreo, start us off. What do you got?
Which would you rather me talk about, the book I'm reading or the music I'm listening to?
I want the book.
Knox wants the book. I started reading Fourth Wing. I'm only like 6 or 7 chapters in right now. So like 100 pages. It's really, really good. I don't read. So the fact that I'm reading this book in general is kind of crazy. But I just have to talk about music because I'm obsessed with music. Benson Boone just released a song that he has been teasing for like a really long time called Beautiful Things. Favorite song right now. Very much obsessed with it. I love like indie music and all that vibe, but yeah, very, very obsessed with that kind of music right now.
Drazzle.
I'm going to start with, I feel like I've been led astray by Zach because Good Old Games does not have my old horse games on it, and I'm
Oh
crushed.
my god.
I was really
Zachary.
excited for my horse games to make a return. Equestrian 2001, extremely technical for no reason. Would you play the shit out of it if I was given another opportunity?
Look, they're a good service. I'm not going to say they have everything on there.
Yeah, that's fair. I just got real excited for just a minute. Real world stuff. I'm an adult and we put in a microwave over the weekend. I have a working microwave in my house now. I don't have to go in my garage and let the house goblins loose. I get a microwave tea in the house.
You're
So,
using it for tea out of everything.
or
Tea was the
popcorn.
option you used?
Actually, I think the first thing I did with it was melt butter. So a whole 10 seconds of
Okay, first off, the house goblins are cats. Second off,
yes.
Drazzle,
house
we need to get you a hot water kettle.
No, for real.
Yeah, I mean, I just use a pot most of the time.
need to
Having
get
an
a
electric kettle is a little life changing.
You're aging yourself.
fair.
Please. Please stop.
I mean, that's what you brought me here for, right?
Zach, what have you been up to?
What the hell have I been up to? I think the only thing I've really done in the recentest past is I've been working on the big secret episode that we're working on.
Yeah.
For anybody who understands After Effects, I've been doing expressions. Lots of expressions. For anybody who doesn't understand After Effects, it's a compositing software technically, which is when you composite multiple pieces of video together. But it's kind of a weird tool nowadays because it does a lot of motion graphics and you can do some like basic 2D animations and a lot of really interesting things that you can do with it. But I've just been slowly chipping away at that. So yeah, the expressions is basically like Java programming within it.
What have
Really
you been
exciting.
up to? Yeah, that's all over my head too.
Sorry.
No, it's great. I wish I understood, but I, alas, do not. A couple weeks ago on the pod, I talked about how I was going to see Hamilton soon. Well, turns out I saw it yesterday. It was amazing. It was great. Oreo can attest. I snapped her at intermission. I was crying most of the first act because I tell myself that it's just a show. You won't cry. And then I just cry through it. It's so good. Such a comfort area for me. I would like to, they will never watch this podcast. I will put money on that. But it was a really fun day in the theater when a lot of the standbys get to come on and you get to see people who don't normally get to perform those roles perform and kind of how all out they go into it. So yesterday, the role of Hamilton and the role of Eliza were both performed by standbys. They were Cameron Richardson and Giselle Aon. They were phenomenal. Probably my favorite Hamilton and Eliza I have seen between the 3 or 4 versions. Definitely none of them bootlegged. that I've seen of this show. So I had the time of my life. I looked at my boyfriend when we were done and I said, maybe if I sit here long enough, they'll do it again. I didn't want to leave, but I love that show with all my heart. And I cannot wait to go back soon at some point, hopefully in the near future, to see
You
that
just
again.
unlocked another core memory for me.
Oh, bootlegging Broadway shows?
No, I was actually really good, and I didn't do that.
Oh, I had a whole Google Drive folder of them. I had quite a few, actually.
No, you said time of your life, so quick little side story. When I was in high school, I went to Broadway and saw American Idiot live.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow I thought you were gonna bring up Green Day.
It's a
Because
phenomenal
it's in
show.
my head now.
It's an absolutely
That is a
phenomenal
good
show. However, I will say right off the bat, having seen it twice, see it with a cast who's really passionate about it and see it in the right space. Boston Opera House did not do it justice. But seeing it live with Billy Joe Armstrong there and having him come out on to do the encore, and them do the entire cast came out with acoustic guitars and sang "Time of Your Life." I've still got a recording of it somewhere. It's
That's so cool. Well, Aspen wants us to wrap up.
Dylan, my dog's just going crazy.
Thank you to everyone for joining us. We really hope you enjoyed our discussion today. We release these episodes weekly, but if that's not enough for you, we're often available in the Snowflake Sanctuary Discord server. If you want to offer your own insight, have any ideas for what you want to hear, or just think that we're a cool group of people to hang out with, then click the link in the description. Also, if you are watching us on YouTube, feel free to come check us out on Spotify so you can listen to us in the car and not crash while you're watching the YouTube video. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, feel free to come over to YouTube and see what we look like and listen to us there. That being said, thank you again to Oreo and to Draz for joining us on this episode, and thank you to you for listening to us, and we hope to see you in the next one. Bye, everyone!
Bye.
We do the two hands here. We do
No.
two hands.
no.
But-
Why are we making this a thing?
But
We
this
do
one
two
was
hands.
doing the
Jazz
anxious hair playing thing. I mean, I did the whole time. You can't take my stim from me.